Hello and welcome to the Dwarven Tavern review, part whatever. I've been going on for this for a while. We're talking about part 3 of the book, but it's not part 3 of this review. The Dungeon Master's Guide 5th edition, awesome book. I think it behooves itself as I think it does its job. It's going to get pretty high marks. Part 3, Master of the Rules, and it talks about rules for the table. Bring snacks, like you have to be told. Avoid distractions, foster respect. Yeah, you don't want to be a jerk as a dungeon master. It does not foster, nor does it engender any player respect. This gavel has great power, and as we all know about great power, very responsibility, and all that stuff. So, don't bring personal conflicts to the table. For example, a friend of mine did not like what happened to one of his characters. So, in my game, I killed one of his. I didn't kill him. He was killed as part of the storyline. And as a result, when he dungeon mastered me, some very, very heinous things befell my character for no good reason. There was only a friendship karma that befell bad fortune unto me. And it wasn't fair, and it wasn't nice, and it wasn't a very good thing at all for him to do. It was uncalled for. And that not only engendered no respect for me, it actually lost quite a bit of respect for the person, not the dungeon master, but for this guy, for this person whom I'd known for ages. I just lost, a measure of respect for him because he was being such a vindictive jerk. And the stuff that he did to my player, my character, was not anything that could not be undone, which it was very, very soon thereafter. And it actually became part of another story. But it was just the fact that he did it. And the reason he did it, because he actually told me, I only did that because you did this to my guy. I'm like, really? Okay. I thought we were grown-ups. So, yeah. So, you want to establish rules for the table. Like, talk at the tables, how much distraction there can be. You want to rule the table with an iron fist, or do you want to have fun? I like to do both, but you can't often. Sometimes you let the players have to what to do, but you have to make it clear who's speaking, the character or the player. If the player's out of character, have another friend who's a good friend who insists that everything you say, your character does. You cannot joke about what they do, which is fine if you make that an established rule. If you don't make an established rule, many people like to joke while they're gaming. They're I'll just jump in. It's like, okay, you do. I didn't really. You said it, you did it. And then he would go through the process of determining what consequences you'd suffer from that action. And, so it's a good thing. It can be a good thing if it's an established rule, if it's out in the open. First couple of times we did it, we you learn fast, though. Decide how you feel about a player sharing information his or her character wouldn't know, or that the character is incapable of sharing as a result of being unconscious, dead, or far away. That's metagaming, and that's bad. So yeah, you want to make sure. When somebody says, "Oh, ask him about this," and it's like you're not even there. And I, as a dungeon master, usually go, and you hear a voice that sounds strikingly familiar, like that character, but they say, "Ask him about this." So, as a joke, and they can't ask it. So, and not only that, you have to. There's a large role playing instance in which a person would know something, but their character couldn't know it because of technology or some other mitigating factor. And or there's also an instance in which the character might know something that the player has no clue about. So you have to temper that knowledge with context and reality. For example, a player who is playing a character whose intelligence is off the scale, their knowledge would be vastly more than the knowledge of the person playing them, even if that person is an incredible genius themselves, which is not always the case. But how do you play a character that is more intelligent than you are, or has a greater range of information on siege weapons than you do? You have to play that by ear, and you gotta let the dice speak sometimes. Which brings us to the dice rolling, which you as a dungeon master reserve the right to roll the dice out of the view of the players. If you roll them all out here where they can see, all out here, then you as the dungeon master are stuck to those rules. You can't fudge the rules. You can't fudge the rolls in any way, shape, or form if the players can see what they've rolled. Meaning that if that player, or if whatever you're rolling that die is for, or those dice, whatever you're rolling that to accomplish, they see what it has accomplished. When the die roll is bad, then you have to live with that consequence. And if you are like me and the story calls for a character to survive, even they don't know that, but they need to survive through this next thing, and something kills them, you may want to fudge that roll to where it only incapacitates them, or where they can get ready rescue, or something that keeps them alive until you're ready for them to suffer their own consequences. So you have the power to fudge the rolls, but not if they can see them. Remember that. For rolling, for the player, you have to make sure that the player rolls when you need them to, or where it can be seen. Because I have encountered, I don't like to play with people who cheat, and I've had players use the rolling behind their hand to move the die to where it gets the roll they want, and I don't play with those guys at all, because that's stupid and childish and icky poo-poo caca. So the players have to roll out where it can be seen. The dice know, and if you're meant to roll a 20, we often have a what's called a situation die, and the situation die is not anywhere around where I can see it. But this is not the situation die, but it's a situation die. This is a die it's a very special die, and the real situation die that I have that is not visible to me is it's the first D20 that I ever owned, and it dates back to the 70s. And so when I got the situation die, I put it in there, and if this is a do or die, let the fates decide moment, then you can roll the situation die, and you take it up and you roll it. Whatever that die roll is, that is law. You roll it out where everybody can see it. And I actually had a situation in which my player had used, he begged me, because he was facing unsurmountable odds, and he asked me if he could take all of his psionic power, because as his psionic power was at the time, he was unable to overcome that obstacle. So he asked me if he could put all of his psionic points into one blast and teleport him and his wife out of that situation. And if they didn't, they would have died. because it was draining levels, and it was a terrible situation. So he took the situation die, and he shook it and said a prayer, and he rolled the die, and it was a 20. That was the only way he could have made it, even using all of his psionic points. And which you're not supposed to be able to do anyway, but under this circumstance, it was either do that or die. So it was extreme enough to force him to go beyond what he could normally do. It's a good situation. It was a bad situation, but it was a good thing. So so he used all of his psionic points and rolled a natural 20, which was the thing that he had to have in order to survive. Had he not rolled it, he would have died, and so would she, who was his other character at the time. So, with that being said, he made it. He used the situation die, rolled a 20, melted under the table, wept a bit, I think, had to go pee. And when he came back, he extolled the virtues of the situation die, because the dice know when you have to have it. So, let's not metagame as we continue here. And roll the dice, be fair, don't cheat. That's dumb. And be supportive of new players, and that's what this whole chapter is about. And how to set difficulty classes, and how to make saving throws. And role playing, and sometimes a death is cool, depending on what you die for. I've had characters. I actually had a character who got to say, "You guys go on, I'll hold them off," with every expectation that this was going to be the end of that character. As it turned out, it was a much easier challenge than he thought it was going to be, because the character himself is quite bamf, and he caught up with him later and said, "I killed it." And they're like, "Really? Wow, that's really a surprise. That's really amazing." So, anyway, and then it talks about how to use a map, exploring, social interaction, and it goes into size scales. And this scale, it looks like it goes from tiny, small, medium, and here's the scale. It's on page 248, as you will see when you buy your copy of said book. It goes from tiny to gargantuan. It doesn't have colossal in here, apparently. Huge and gargantuan. Okay. So, yeah, I'm still learning things from this book. I'm still getting it. And then it talks about critical hits. A monster follows the same rules critical hits as player characters. Yeah, what goes for one goes for the other. So if you want a new rule, you better be ready to face the consequences of said rule. So, adjudicating areas of effect, improvising damage, and so forth, like burned by coals, a 1d10 burned by coals, hit by falling bookcase, pricked by a poison needle, etc. All the way up to 24d10 dice of damage, is tumbling into a vortex of fire on the elemental plane of fire. A bad day. Being crushed by the jaws of a godlike creature or a moon-sized monster. So yeah, you could do that. And it goes on, and then it covers something that when we come back up, we'll talk about this. It's the chase rule, which is something in a turn-based game is very hard to adjudicate, and this covers it fairly nicely, I think. So, again, this is the 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide from www.dungeonsanddragons.com. Wizards of the Coast, they are. And don't forget to look us up at dwarventavern.net and Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe and give us a like. Leave comments. We love comments. And remember that we wish for you to want for nothing but adventure, because that means you have everything else. And we wish that for you. And at first I feared it, then I charged. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.